Hello and welcome everybody to the new IADS webinar. My name is Ave, and today we will be having our first webinar from the series of Reinventing Dentistry. Today we have invited with us Eva and Gabriela to talk about their work, as besides clinical dentistry, they have also chosen career paths in volunteering, institutional and organizational work, all linked to global health. I believe we, as dental students, can start rethinking our careers in a more global way. And hearing about different opportunities will open eyes and motivate us all to do more for the world for better oral health. Hereby, I introduce Miss Gabriela Sardon as the first presenter. Gabriela, the floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Ave, for that introduction. My name is Gabriela Sardon, and I'm here to talk to you about a bit about my journey and the different career choices that I made, and hopefully in a way that it will give you some better idea of what different options are out there for you that you can explore as a dentist. So yes, I will start this with a few slides presentations that I prepare. One moment, please. Oh. Okay, sorry about that. So here we go. Career paths beyond dentistry. So I'll just start quickly explaining why beyond dentistry. I don't mean outside of dentistry. It's more about thinking that dentistry is not really an isolated profession, and we see the outside world, and there are so many different issues like inequality of health, poverty, pollution, and perhaps these issues didn't really make a huge impact in our profession in the past, but nowadays this situation is a bit different. So the dental sector, we are participants in these issues one way or another. For example, our practices could be having a negative impact on the environment perhaps, or there can be actions that we can take to improve the access to health services by people in rural and remote communities. So hopefully this just makes you see why it's important that as young dentists and advocates of health, we need to think a bit outside of the box and see how our voices and actions can help to make a difference. So with that in mind, I'm just gonna quickly start sharing a little bit more about my journey and the different choices or steps that I took along the way. So in a snapshot, this is a summary of my career in the last 8 years. And I will chat a little bit about a few of them in the next slides. So I graduated in 2011 as a dentist, and my first choice was working in the private sector. But simultaneously as well, I volunteered and worked with some NGOs that delivered health services to people in rural and remote communities of Peru. And I just wanted to quickly talk a little bit more about this, because this is a really rewarding experience. And it's, in a way, it also gives you a real life experience of the struggles and challenges that people living in rural communities have. And because they don't have many access to health services, and just gives you an opportunity to be human and acknowledge their struggles and use your career in dentistry to improve in a way their oral health and general well-being. You get to interact a lot with other volunteers who may be other local dental or medical professionals They can be international as well, so it increases your networking, and there is an opportunity for interprofessional training. So you can have different roles when you're working with this type of NGO. Some day you're a dentist, another day you're the dental assistant. You can be the receptionist, the clinical director for a day. There is a lot of rotations throughout different roles, and I think this in a way also makes you think a little bit more about what you can do beyond dentistry. Makes you think about workforce distribution, policymaking, what can be done to improve really the conditions that remote communities have. So in my experience, if you haven't done volunteering, by the way, I would strongly encourage you to do so, because these NGOs are always looking for volunteers to join a campaign or two. So it's an amazing opportunity. And during my last year here, I also I volunteered for 4 years, and during the last year, I was directing some of these projects with one of these NGOs, and it made me wanted to learn more and educate myself a bit more on public health and running health projects. So I decided to do a master's degree. I did a Master of Health Sciences, which is a bit broad. So I got exposed to public health, environmental health, health administration, and I think in a way it gave me a better direction of what I wanted to do. During my last year of this master's degree, I did research, and it was on dental amalgam. So at the time, dental amalgam and mercury was a hot topic, and really still is, mostly from the environmental perspective, as it contains mercury. So during this research, I became aware of the Minamata Convention on Mercury, which is a fairly new international environmental treaty that seeks to protect human health and the environment from the adverse effects of mercury. And I found that Peru had ratified the treaty, and I knew from experience and interactions with my colleagues that dentists in the public sector as well were widely using dental amalgam for restoration. So although the Minamata Convention at this time that I was conducting this research had not yet entered into force, it seemed like a good timing to in a way assess how ready were Peruvian dentists to implement the different requirements that the Minamata Convention had for dental amalgam. And just to give you a little bit more of information of it as well, I'll be very quick here. Just the Minamata Convention addresses different sectors to, in a way, protect human health and the environment from mercury. And one of these is the products, mercury-added products. So most of them have a phase-out date by 2020. Thermometers, for example, will be removed from all the countries that are ratifying countries. But for dental amalgam, it doesn't really have a phase-out date. The approach here is to phase it down. So it's just minimizing its using, doing a lot of work on prevention and oral health promotion, research and development and quality, mercury-free restorative materials, promoting best environmental practices. And so when I decided to do this research, I wanted to learn a bit more about what were the knowledge, practice, and attitudes that dentists in the public sector had towards dental amalgam use and waste management. And just wanted to quickly share a few of the main research findings here. So dental amalgam was the material of choice that these dentists were using. This does not mean that it was the preferred material, but really in some of the health services that they were practicing, this was the only material available to them to do restorations. And although it was widely used, dentists were not disposing of it in an appropriate manner. So it was mostly going down the drain or in the regular garbage. And however, the majority as well, although some of them did not like the concept of dental amalgam being reduced or completely eliminated, for example, the majority did have a positive attitude towards phasing it down. And yes, in conclusion, there was the main highlight was that there was a need for consultation with dentists in those countries that are ratifying countries of the convention, a consultation mainly to identify the best strategies that can be implemented in the dental sector in order to comply with the Minamata Convention, and that there was a need for access to information, training, and resources like, by resources, I mean quality alternative materials, or mercury-free materials, restorative materials, and dental amalgam separators, for example, amalgamators, dental amalgam capsules instead of bulk mercury, and of course, better regulation, not only at the national level, but also at the organizational level. And this research, during this research as well, it was based in one project that was being conducted by the World Health Organization and the United Nations Environment Program. And I sent a few emails to the subject matter experts that I started finding along the way. And I was very lucky that some of them got back to me and were interested in sharing what they knew about this issue and listening to me and my research. So it was these networking and interactions with these experts that in a way gave me, encouraged me to apply for an internship at the United Nations Environment Program, which it was a life-changing experience for me. And I was very fortunate to get accepted in the first place, because this experience really gave me the opportunity to work side by side with global leaders and got to experience the discussions and all the consultations behind international policy making and how they are implemented. And it was also interesting to learn here in all the different UN agencies about the health in all policies approach, which means that health implications need to be taken into account when policies are being developed at all levels. And during this time as well, I contributed in some projects that were related to my career, dentistry. For example, in those that were, or even related to my research. So projects that were about implementing the Minamata Convention, finding the best strategies to phase out mercury added products and phase down dental amalgam. But I also worked on projects that were completely new to me and that were a bit outside of my comfort zone. For example, I worked a bit on lead in paint, which was a bit of a challenge because I had very limited knowledge on this issue. So I had to educate myself a lot, because I wanted to make the most of the interactions that I was having with all the stakeholders. And lastly, it was really interesting to see how dependent we are on stakeholder collaboration to make things happen, intersectoral collaboration. So including UN agencies, governments, private sectors, NGOs, academia, all of these were just lessons, I guess, that I took from this internship. And I have a few photos to share with you as well. So this is from, these photos in the right is the first conference of the parties of the Minamata Convention. So I was very excited that my internship started a few weeks before the first conference of the party. So I had to experience the plenary with all of the countries that were ratifying countries, NGOs, UN agencies, and all relevant stakeholders that were really making decisions on what were going to be the first steps of this convention. And I'm not gonna lie, it was quite intimidating at the beginning, especially because most of my expertise was around dentistry. And I was just starting to learn more and more about global health and the environmental perspective in all of this. But it was a great opportunity to, I guess, challenge myself a bit more and educate myself more on the projects that I was being assigned by my supervisor, so I could have a bigger participation in them. And these photos are just a few fun photos with other interns that I got to hang out with during my time at the United Nations. And so it just gives you, like I said, a really good opportunity to get to meet all the people that are interested in global health, and it's a good networking experience, very valuable. In my case, it was extremely valuable as well. So since the United Nations happened, it has really opened a lot of doors for me in different sectors, and the networking has been invaluable. So extremely valuable. So I've been working as a consultant for projects working on dental amalgam and chemicals management, and I'm currently working as well as a project officer of a program that aims to have a positive influence on future workforce distribution of health professionals into settings that include regional, rural, and remote facilities. So I think the main message, or just to wrap it up a bit, that was my journey. But I hope that it has provided you with some options of what you can do once you finish your dentistry degree, once you become a dentist. So I think from my experience, a few lessons that I gathered from that, what helped expand, I guess, my horizon in a way, was the work through the volunteering work with the NGOs and the education, so doing a master's that provided me different knowledge and skills, the internship with the United Nations, but there also, there could be an internship with an NGO or another opportunity that would expose you to broader topics, and networking as well, networking at all stages of your career once you finish your dental degree. This is quite important, I think. And there are plenty of fields available for you to work in: global health, environmental health, policy research. You have a look at it, they're in a way all interrelated. And there is a need for health professionals, including dental professionals as well, to take part in these fields. And you could perhaps work for an NGO, a UN agency, get some experience working for the government. So there are plenty of options out there for you. And I hope this has not only provided you with these options, but also has made you realize that you are needed in these fields as well. So we need dentists providing dental treatments, but we also need dentists, I guess, having a voice in global health. So yes, good luck. The future is in your hands, and I guess I'll share my details as well later on. So if you have any questions that you would like to learn a bit more, please do feel free to contact me. I'm gonna try to get back to the video. I hope I'm back in the video. And I don't know if Eva is ready for me to give the floor to her. Eva?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I hope you can all hear me and see me. Thank you, Gabriela, for this presentation. I enjoyed it very much. I also want to thank Ave for the introduction and the organization of this webinar. And of course, all the people and students that are taking today the time and the interest to watch us. So I will share with you today my work experience and what influenced me to choose a master's in international health. Also what I'm learned from it and what are my current plans. So to start with, I will take you on a trip. Okay, where is... I'm looking for a screen.
Hi, Eva. Took me a bit to find it as well. It's on the left.
Okay. Because it's the...
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Okay, now, sorry about that. All right. Share. Right. Okay. So here we are. First, a short introduction about myself. Well, my name is Eva. I'm from Spain. I studied in Barcelona. I finished my degree in 2013. I work in different countries, mostly in Germany, and I'm doing now part-time a master's in international health. So when I finished my studies, I went to the south of India with the Fundación Vicente Ferrer for 5 months. And there I work in a rural hospital. And we also work with mobile devices in smaller hospitals and schools of the region. Besides dentistry work, as you might know it, we work in prevention campaigns in cerebral palsy and HIV orphan centers. You can see the pictures below. And by the time I was there, I wrote a blog about personal experiences and cultural shocks. It's written in an informative way in English and in Spanish when I wanted to speak my heart out. And the same year, I went to maybe one of the most impressive places I've ever been, to the Himalayan region of Ladakh in north of India. I worked there with the German NGO Kinderhimal, and I like it so much that I went back again in June 2016. What really struck me while I was there was to see stunted children, chronic malnourished children with devastated teeth. To put you in context, Ladakh is around 3,000 to 5,000 above the sea level, and it's extremely cold in winter and very dry most of the year. Nevertheless, given the circumstances, they have amazing traditional healthy food. But unfortunately, in recent years, young food and sweets are taking the place of real food. And that's ruining the teeth and the health of the population. And the impact of this change in the diet is seen very rapid in small children. That is, by the way, seen in a lot of places all around the world, this diet switch. And if you can see the child in the front middle picture, she was the same height in 2014 as well as in 2016. And she only had the black root rest in their mouth. I saw her only eating candies. Most probably, the pain she has endured and the inability to chew proper food had surely had an impact on their development. So again, beside traditional dentistry and hygiene lessons and giving dental brushes to the children and explain how to clean better, I started nutritional speeches in school and high schools of the area. And right after this first experience in India, I started working in the south of Germany, in Karlsruhe. Back then, Germany was in the middle of the refugee crisis, so many people having other worries sidelined oral health. So when they came to the practice, I encountered pretty bad dental situations. So again, beside normal, regular dentistry work, I work a lot with refugees with other kind of oral pathologies. And already before I started my work in Karlsruhe, I read something about the Masters in International Health, but back then I told myself, well, I'm going to work for a couple of years, and if I still have the idea on my head, I will then do it. And 2 years later, so it was, so I moved to Berlin to start the Masters. The program had the components I was kind of missing in traditional dentistry, and it really lived up to my expectations. Each of us in the class had a different origin, professional background, way of thinking, and apart from the knowledge in subjects I knew little about, such as epidemiology, public health, tropical medicine, health economic, etc. And apart having friends and soulmates all over the world, I learned a very valuable skill. It's the ability to look at things from different perspectives, to be able to zoom in and out at problems, find solutions or better solutions from the ones that are already in place. When I was in Berlin, I also worked for a year in a private practice. And again, beside pure dentistry, I confront many first world big city issues, cases of drug addicts, mental health patients who had very severe dental disease. And by that time, I went several times to a spinal cord injury hospital where patients there had very neglected oral health. And I didn't stop there. I wanted to get to know other parts of the world apart from India and Germany. So last year, I went to Bolivia. I worked there in a small dental clinic close to Cochabamba. And the indigenous influence there is impressive. It took me sometimes aback that I couldn't communicate in Spanish with sometimes with old people because they only speak Quechua, and they have a very peculiar taste for the front teeth, as you can see in the picture on the right above. Golden crowns with the shape of a heart, a shape of a star, and while working there, it struck us that the rate of adolescent mothers in the area was insane, and their children were in general quite neglected. So beside dentistry, we engaged the public health authorities of Cochabamba to launch a family planning species in the village. And last but not least, last December, I came back from my so far last project in a beautiful island from the Philippines, in Mindoro. There I work with the German doctors in a rolling clinic. Every day we went to different indigenous village of the area, and I work in schools, kindergartens, churches, market stalls, basically everywhere. And this was my team. The driver was my dental assistant, and he was in charge of doing the hygiene lessons, and I was in charge of the extractions. So, okay, stop sharing. And I hope you can all see me. So the reason I brought my experiences working in international projects in developing countries, and also my not so interesting daily life, daily routine in Germany, is that in both places, developing and developed countries, there are vulnerable people. And traditional dentistry is failing to provide them a solution, a treatment that works for them. And why I keep repeating, besides working as a dentist, I did blah blah blah. It's because those are the vulnerable population indeed, and of course they need regular dentistry. They will always need it, but not only. And there's a disease pattern in those groups, and we have to try to find a solution, the root cause, and not just put patches. As a curiosity, I read the other day an article written by Sanders. It's a socially sensitive dentist for a changing society. And what shocked me was the date. It was 1968. So what I'm sharing today with you is not something new. It's something that has been there a long time ago. And another thought I also wanted to talk to you about is oral health and general health are sometimes so detached from each other, and there's a huge potential in integrating oral health into general medical care and vice versa. To finish with, I wanted to share with you what I'm doing right now. I'm working on my master thesis, and it's about, there is an area in Kenya where there is long-standing data about the social determinants of health. So the characteristics in which people grow, live, work, die, and there is no data about oral health. So that's where I come in, and I'm going to measure the social and economic impacts of oral health, so it can be further on related to the social determinants of health. And you might wonder, what are the social determinants of health? What's the link between social determinants of health and oral health? What's this person talking about? So and to show you, I will bring you back to the Philippines. Okay. Okay, so why such differences? In this slide, you can appreciate two young mothers. They are from different places in the island in Mindoro, but both belong to indigenous groups, indigenous tribes. So what makes one having good oral health and the other one not having good oral health at all? What plays a role behind this? It can be in part education. Education is related to health literacy. It increases the chances of a better job in the future and a good income. How about dropping out of school too early? Maybe because you have to take care of a family member, or in case of early pregnancy, where you are not even prepared to take care of yourself, and on top you have to take care for another human being. Of course, in those situations, oral health goes to the end of the list of your problems. How about access to fresh and quality food? Diet is a fundamental pillar for good oral health. By the way, the picture, this is rice drying, if you wonder. So do you have the economic means to buy good fresh food? Do you have a market nearby in your village where you can get it? Or on the contrary, there is only a stall with packaged food and sweets in your village. And then you have to go to the other stall of the market to get your teeth pulled out. How about the equipment to prepare food? And do you have objects and the time to prepare food, or you buy prepared food because it's easier? The water source. Do you have a water source in your village? How do you maintain self-hygiene? What's the sanitation situation where you live? What's your work? How do you make ends meet? Many jobs are very seasonal and irregular and perhaps poorly paid. Where do you have to go for a living? Did you have to emigrate to another place, or do you have to walk long distance so that your livestock gets food and water? And how do you live? How is your house? Is it going to survive the next typhoon? Do you have water at home, or do you have to walk to a fountain to get it? And is the fountain functioning every time? Brushing teeth without water can become really a challenge. Do you have a place where you can keep your oral hygiene instruments clean and safe? As you can see in the picture, they are good place in the wall of the house. And if health issues or such as toothache, how can you go to a doctor or a dentist? Is it possible to get through the flooded road? Is the bridge in good stand? Is the family vehicle available? There are, by the way, 8 people in this motorbike. So my point is that there are many influential factors that affect directly or indirectly oral health. And ultimately, we should reflect about where we want to head with our profession. This is my last slide. I am happy to answer any of your questions in this webinar now or by email. And thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Eva and Gabriela. Let me tell you some of the comments that we have received so far and the questions as well. Okay, the first question we have, I'm sorry, I have to enable my mic. Yeah, okay. The first question we have, let me read it. Yeah, if you would like to have to buy some elements from what you have mentioned in your presentation, this question, by the way, for both of you. Okay, So if you'd like to pick some elements from what you have mentioned in your presentation, then how do you think the dental curricula can include global health into the studies of dental students? So, Eva, can you start? Or shall you start? Okay, Eva, please, can you enable your mic? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, sorry, can you repeat the question for me, because the sound is a little bit bad, so just repeat the question for me. So
okay, I'm sorry. Okay, if you would like to pick some elements or some things from your presentation today, then how do you think that the dental curriculum can include global health into the studies of dental students? Like from your experience, how we can include global health into our dental curriculums?
so how can we include oral health into
Global health. Yeah, global health, not oral health.
So when I was studying, I heard nothing about global health, and I think to start, it's just an idea. It will be interesting to do a conference so that the dental students can hear about it, and if they are interested in the theme, maybe there can be an optional subject in dentistry school about global health. But I think at least they have to have the opportunity to know what it is.
Perfect.
I hope I answered your question.
Okay, I think this is a convincing answer. Okay, Gabriela, you would like to add something?
Hi. Just briefly, yes, I agree with Eva. It is quite hard to change the curricula, actually. That I think that's hard to do, and from my experience as well in studying dentistry in Peru, didn't hear much of global health, unfortunately, or public health. Did briefly touch on epidemiology and things, but it was quite superficial, and I think there's also not only in public health, but perhaps dental students should also learn a bit more about toxicology and the learning a bit more of the chemicals that we handle with, because there is an environmental responsibility that we have as well as dental professionals to make sure that we are using the safest material that is out there, and also disposing it in a way that is not going to have an adverse impact on our environment, because once it reaches the environment, really it comes back to us. So I think there are different elements that should be included in the dental curricula, but like Eva suggested, I think that's a really good suggestion, maybe having conferences or a bit more of access to modules about all these different topics that dental students should start learning about. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you totally agree that we need to start introducing or reforming the dental curriculums in such way. Okay, so the second question that we get also is, should dentists be more active socially? And how can this mentality of dentists can be changed to also include public health to their clinical work?
I think it is how the dentist can be more active in social activity. I think
like in social life.
Yes, I think a really good opportunity that even dental students can have, because I started the volunteering experience when I was a dental student, is that in starting engaging with NGOs, you can really make a difference by signing up for public dental campaigns or medical campaigns that include dentistry. And there is a lot of there's a lot of opportunities out there, because it's not that easy once you become a dentist and you have commitments and to give up your time and go away for a month or two to a really remote area and give up your life in a way. But it's also a really rewarding experience and really eye-opener, I guess, because you get to see what are the conditions that these people are going through. I think Eva did a really good presentation showing what are the different conditions, and really learning more about why the dental they may have. You get to understanding a bit more what are the different impacts that social determinants have on oral health and just the general well-being. So a good start to have a better understanding of that and actually taking action, I think, is engaging more with NGOs and being active with volunteering, perhaps.
So I totally agree with Gabriela. To become more socially active as a dentist, you have to take action, and you can engage with an NGO, but also you can do a lot of things in your own country. For example, in Germany, there are a lot of refugees. You can work in refugees camp. Here in Barcelona, for example, there is a NGO working with kids from immigrants with very poor oral health. So actually, there are so many opportunities to improve oral health, because everywhere there are people in need. And also, what I said during my presentation, it's very important to do combined interventions. For example, there is one intervention in the Philippines, Fit for School. They do teeth brushing and hand washing. Or in Cambodia, they do teeth brushing and also vitamin A supplements, deworming. So try to do as much as possible, and try to that oral health is a part of health. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, third question. Okay, can social determinants of health and non-communicable diseases be the window through which dentists can advocate for global health, and which other platforms could be used? Like could be the answer these be the window through which dentists can advocate for global health, and are there any other platforms that could be used to advocate for oral health on a global context?
So I think I'm going to get my headphones to get your question, and maybe Gabriela can answer to it, and I'm coming right now.
Okay, Gabriela, can you unmute your mic, please?
I'm very sorry. I was just saying, if you could please repeat the questions. I understood it was about platforms and social determinants of health, but I think I missed the main bit.
Okay,
sorry.
No problem. Okay. Question saying that, can social determinants of health and non-communicable diseases be the window through which dentists can advocate for global health? And this is the first question. And which other platforms could be used?
Which other platforms can be used for dentists to advocate for global health, is it?
Yes, exactly.
That's a good question. Yes, social determinants, it's one of the platforms that can be used, I guess, for dentists to advocate for global health. But I just see also global health in everything. I think because I did the internship in the environment, the United Nations environment, I guess I have a bit of that environmental perspective. And I think really health in all policies does apply across all levels and all sectors. And as dental professionals, we're health professionals. So we should start engaging really in our own organizations or with the government a bit more, liaising a bit more to advocate for global health across all levels, I guess, yes.
Okay, perfect. So, Eva?
Yeah, I'm back again. Now I can hear you better. So how you can advocate for global health?
Yes, as done. Yeah.
I guess the key point is that teeth are important, and I think for example, it's a part of of the diet, it's a part of mental health, it's a part of well-being, and I think you have to sell it like that. That you cannot work in silos and try to just make better one part without the whole. So I think it's key that oral health is just part of the health.
Yes, so you totally agree that the social determinants of health are a good window to advocate for oral health on a global context. Okay, good. So the fourth question, I'm sorry, we have a lot of questions today, so I'm trying to say it really fast. So the fourth question saying that how can dental students on a local level get more involved in public health? Do I always need a master's degree in public health to do this kind of community work, or is there some easier way?
So absolutely, you don't need a master's to engage at the local level. Absolutely not. As I said before, there are organizations inland in other countries that yes, with your dentistry degree or even as a student, you can work as dental assistant is enough. So you don't need to be an expert in public health to engage in a NGO.
Yeah. Go ahead. Gabriela, you would like to add something?
I think Eva has said it. Eva has said it quite well, because if it's at the local level, with your skills as a dentist, or dental student, sorry, there is so much that you can do already. And every community has their own needs, and there are vulnerable populations everywhere. So I think an a master's degree does help if you want to perhaps pursue it like in more policy making, or making, I guess, taking it more at an international level or just national level. And it just gives you as well more tools, more skills and knowledge to be part of bigger projects. But if it's, I think, a good way to start for dental students at the local level, all they need is their hands and their presence, and that there's so much they can do with that already.
Good. Okay, so the fifth question is kind of complex question, so I will try to separate it in two parts to be more clear. So, what's the most effective social determinant of health factor linked to global oral health in your opinion and experience? Like, from your experience, what is the most effective factor of social determinants which is linked to global oral health?
So let me paraphrase that question. What's the most effective social
determinant? Yeah, social determinant of health, which is linked to the global oral health, like the age, the rural dwelling, like the social determinant of health are pretty big. So which factor is more effective or more linked to global oral health?
You want to start, Eva?
Yeah, please.
If you like.
Yeah.
I was just going to say it's quite complex because there is so many different factors. There is I don't know how to say it, a harmony of all these different factors that really predispose a person to a good or a bad oral health. If I have to pick only one, that's a hard one, but I think I can go with diet. I think diet is a huge factor that one of the most important, I don't know if I should say the most important, but a very important social determinant that plays a role in oral health. And this is also because we can see the switch in diet and the impact that it's having in dental caries around the world. So for example, if when I also did some, from my personal experience, when I was working with rural communities, very similar experience to what Eva shared. Unfortunately, some of the treatments were only extractions because there was nothing to rescue from the mouth of some children that we were treating. I'm talking about 8-year-olds that were having just roots in their mouth, and this is mostly because of diet. And then you could go to another rural community, which also were perhaps a low income, very resource limited community, but because they had a different diet, their teeth were just completely different. And also because of the water that they have, a different, perhaps fluoride that was in that water or something. You found, I guess, different clinical scenarios because of the diet that they were consuming. But as well, like I said, there could have been other factors that took place for that to happen. And I think diet does not only impact oral health, but the general well-being of the person. So I think it's quite important for global health. That would be my opinion.
Okay, Eva, you'd like to add something?
Yes, so again, it's the million-dollar question because as I explained also in my presentation, there are so many factors that usually there is not just one thing that causes poor oral health. So I wanted to show you with the different pictures, like how many things can lay behind poor oral health. If I have to pick one, but as I say, I don't like to pick one because there are many, maybe I will say education, because education is also linked to diet indirectly, because if you are well educated, probably you will know which food is better, and you might have a better job, a better income, maybe you can live better, have access to better food, better housing, better sanitation. But there are many things influencing behind poor oral health. And what Gabriela just told was really interesting, because also in the Philippines, sometimes we went to one village where all the people had amazing oral health, and then next day to another one where I pulled 120 teeth, and all was like root rest and awful. So yeah, education is one thing, but of course access to good food and this switch of diet plays a huge role. So there are many things behind. Usually it's a little bit what is the priority of the person.
Yes.
And the better, and oral health is like a mirror of your life. So the better life you had, you will take more care of your teeth. And if you have other worries, other issues, probably oral health come the last problem.
Okay, thank you, Eva. I think this is, as you say, like this is a $1 million question, because it's hard to decide which factor, as you know, it's a network of different determinants. So Eva said that it's education, and Gabriela said it's diet. This is like the brief answer after all. So the second part of this question is also a bit tricky, but it's really good as well. Do you see that we need to add or modify those factors to be more linked to oral health?
Do you want to start?
Oh, no, sorry. I was going to say to please repeat the question.
Okay, so do you think that the current social determinant of health that we know needs to be modified, or do we need to add more factors to it in order to be more linked to oral health?
So if I paraphrase again, if we have to change the social determinants of oral health, right?
Yeah, the current factors, like, the current factors like age, education, and blah, blah, blah. So do we need to add more factors to the current factors that we know, or we need to modify some of them?
I think it's to modify the factors is very difficult, but we have to look at them to maybe quantify or measure factors that we think are not related to oral health. So I would believe we have to put everything on the table and say, okay, this person has poor oral health, or this population, this village has poor oral health. What are the reasons? So yeah, not to try to modify, but just think a little bit broader of what can it be.
Okay, so Gabriela?
I don't think I have anything to add. That was quite good what Eva said. I think more research, I guess, around the current social determinants of health, and if there is anything else that needs to be added. Yeah.
Okay, so I think this is the last question we have for today. Or yes, this is the last one. Okay, this question is for you, Gabriela. Do you think dental amalgam usage in dentistry can be phased down, and do you know about what some countries are doing?
Yes, I think it can be phased down, and I think it's already happening. So some countries are taking different measures, actually, according to, I guess, the different conditions that they have. For example, the EU is, the European Union is already, has taken some measures to implement the Minamata Convention to phase down. That is that dental clinics need to have, for example, the dental amalgam separators in place by a certain year. I don't remember which year, but it's quite soon. And dental amalgam can be used in children, for example, just as a preventive approach. Dental amalgam needs to be used in encapsulated form, because in this way, this is a pre-calculated dosage that is being used. So you reduce the amount of dental amalgam waste that will come from doing that dental treatment restoration. So this is in, obviously, countries that are able to implement this sort of measures. And maybe other countries, like I'll put my country, for example, Peru or other developing country, maybe it's not as easy to put in place dental amalgam separators, which are devices that capture really small particles of dental amalgam waste that go through the high vacuum system, because they're quite expensive, and they're so it will be very hard for all dentists in Peru, I guess, to have one in a dental chair. So maybe this is a measure that we would struggle a bit with implementing, but we can do other measures to phase down dental amalgam. We can, we already have access to some, I guess, quality materials that are available in the market that are mercury free. And in the private sector, dental amalgam has been phased down substantially, because if then patients can access dentistry in a private sector, they're able to afford a composite restoration, and also we can, for example, implement more prevention and oral health promotion as well, initiatives at the national levels, or going to school, talking more about oral health, good hygiene habits and diet. So preventing, in a way, dental caries as a whole, and by doing so, reducing the amount of dental amalgam that is needed as well. So there are different measures that countries are using to phase it down. And I think definitely this is the approach to go with at this current point that we are. I don't see it feasible to phase it out completely at this point right now, but I think someday it might be it. We're certainly already phasing it down worldwide. So yes, those are some of the initiatives that I know.
Perfect. Okay, I think we are done with the questions of today, and I would like to thank you again, Eva and Gabriela, for your amazing career pathway stories. It was really inspirational, even for me. I'm sure also for the students who were watching us today and the ones who will watch it later. Thanks again, and thanks everybody for watching today's webinar, and see you soon with upcoming IADS webinars. Goodbye.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks.